Welcome to my channel Soft Feminine. I still remember the moment as if it had burned itself into my memory. The second my fingers brushed the fabric, everything inside me shifted. It wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. I had hesitated, staring at the silky blouse and flowing skirt that he had handed me, his grin wide, casual, and almost teasing. "You should try it," he said lightly, shrugging, as if it were just a game. "See how it feels." I shook my head, heart hammering. I don't know. I shouldn't, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. My hand trembled as I lifted the blouse from the hanger. It was softer than anything I had ever touched, almost alive against my fingers. The skirt fluttered gently, delicate, calling, as if it knew me better than I knew myself. I stepped behind the bedroom door, hesitant, afraid that the act of wearing it would change something irreversibly. The fabric slid over my shoulders, brushing against my skin with an unfamiliar warmth, and I shivered. The reflection in the mirror was unsettling. Softer. Lighter. Almost glowing. My jaw slackened. My chest felt unfamiliar, and for a brief moment, I hardly recognized myself. Who is that?" I whispered, my voice trembling as I stared at the figure before me. He leaned casually against the doorframe, a faint chuckle escaping him.
"See? Not so scary," he said. "But it was terrifying."
My chest pounded, my fingers smoothing the fabric, desperate to ground myself. Yet beneath the fear, a thrill stirred, a spark I had never felt before. Something inside me had awakened, delicate and insistent, whispering that this was more than just clothes, more than just curiosity. That night, I realized this wasn't going to be just for fun. The next morning, everything felt different. I dressed in my usual neutral clothes, the safe armor I had worn for years, but my mind kept drifting back to her, the version of me I had glimpsed in the mirror the night before. Every reflection felt like a memory of that softness, that lightness, that strange confidence. Even brushing my teeth, I caught a hint of her in the way my fingers lingered over my jawline, tracing a line that had suddenly seemed more delicate, more possible. At work, the shift was undeniable. The office, usually dull and predictable, felt heavier, almost alive with whispers I couldn't quite hear but imagined everywhere. Subtle glances followed me as I walked through the hall, quick looks from colleagues that lingered just a little too long. "Are you okay?" one coworker asked, tilting her head slightly, her tone gentle but curious. "You seem different today." I forced a smile, though it felt brittle. "Yeah, just tired," I muttered, my voice catching slightly, higher than usual. My movements felt awkward, exaggerated even, as if the memory of the blouse and skirt made my usual gestures feel clumsy. I straightened my shoulders, tried to walk normally, but it didn't help. Everything inside me was asking to be her, while my external reality demanded the old, invisible version of me. In the cafeteria, every subtle tilt of a head, every whispered conversation felt like judgment. I kept my eyes down, clutching my coffee cup like it was armor, but the memory of her swaying hips, the gentle tilt of her head, wouldn't leave me. I wanted to disappear, to vanish into the background, but part of me, a part one had never acknowledged, was whispering to stand tall, to exist as her. By the time I returned to my apartment, my safe neutral clothing felt like a cage. I barely touched my desk before the drawer of soft fabrics called to me, whispering promises of freedom I couldn't resist. Silk, lace, chiffon, they weren't just clothes anymore. They were the first taste of a self I had buried. My fingers hovered over them, trembling with anticipation, and yet, a deep, secret thrill coursed through me. I changed slowly, reverently, letting the fabric settle over me as if it were a second skin. The blouse slipped over my shoulders, warm, comforting, alive. The skirt swished softly against my legs. I caught my reflection and felt my heart skip a beat. She was me, and yet not me.
Softer.
Stronger.
Alive.
I whispered to the mirror, voice trembling. Just one night, just this once. But deep down, I already knew the truth. It would never be just once. That night, the apartment felt like a sanctuary, a secret world where the rules of my old life didn't apply. The door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly the hum of the city outside was muted, replaced by the soft whisper of silk and lace. My heart thumped wildly, a rhythm of fear and excitement that refused to settle. I pulled open the drawer slowly, letting my fingers glide over the fabrics like I was touching something sacred. Each piece carried a weight I hadn't anticipated, the skirt light as a feather, the blouse warm against my palms, delicate yet powerful in its promise. I lifted the blouse first, inhaling the faint scent of detergent and softener, a domestic smell that somehow felt intimate, almost personal. My fingers traced the stitching, memorizing the curves of the seams as though they were lines on a map leading me to someone I had always wanted to meet, her. Changing into the clothes was a revelation. The silk brushed over my skin, sending shivers down my spine. The skirt swished gently as I moved, each step a new sensation, a new way to inhabit my body. I stared into the mirror, mesmerized by the transformation. My reflection was familiar, yet entirely different. Softened jawline, lighter eyes, a subtle glow that I hadn't seen in myself before. I touched my cheeks, my lips, tracing the lines of a face that seemed both mine and hers. Then came the makeup. My hands trembled slightly as I picked up the eyeliner pencil. The first line was shaky, hesitant, but as I gained control, the strokes became precise, deliberate. Mascara lengthened my lashes, darkening them and opening my eyes in ways that felt startlingly new. A hint of blush warmed my cheeks, and a soft swipe of lip color made my lips seem alive, responsive, like they were learning to speak a language I had never fully known. Each small change thrilled me, as if I were decoding a secret message written in shadows and light. I experimented with my voice next, softening the tone, elongating vowels, practicing laughter that sounded light, genuine, feminine. I spoke to the mirror, shifting cadence, practicing small expressions, tilts of the head, gentle smiles, subtle glances that I had only ever observed from afar. My body moved differently now. Each step, each sway of the hips, felt like a new discovery, a delicate dance of identity. Hours passed without notice. I practiced gestures, walked slowly across the room, and even tried a soft, confident wave at my reflection. Every motion felt like a small triumph, a declaration that I existed in ways I had never allowed myself to. There was an intoxicating thrill in being unseen yet fully alive, a secret I could explore without the fear of judgment. Sometimes, I whispered to her, the reflection that had become my confidant. "You've been waiting a long time, haven't you?" I murmured, and the mirror, silent yet vivid, seemed to answer in the tilt of the head, the subtle curve of the lips, the sparkle in the eyes. She wasn't just a reflection anymore. She was a possibility, a presence, a version of me I had been afraid to meet. I tried different outfits, combinations of skirts and blouses, scarves and delicate jewelry, marveling at how each piece altered not just my appearance, but the very way I moved, the way I felt. I practiced walking, standing, even sitting with a grace I had never known I could possess. The small victories piled up, a perfect line of eyeliner, a balanced sway, a soft, confident laugh, and with them came a growing confidence, fragile yet exhilarating. By the end of the night, I was exhausted but elated. The reflection in the mirror no longer startled me. Instead, she welcomed me, steady and assured. I whispered softly, reverently, "Just for tonight, but I think I've been waiting for you all my life." And in that quiet moment, I knew it wasn't just play. This was discovery. This was freedom. The following weekend, I decided it was time to test the waters, outside the sanctuary of my apartment. The city felt bigger somehow, louder, charged with possibility. I dressed slowly, reverently, slipping into the soft skirt and blouse I had grown so familiar with. The fabrics brushed my skin like old friends, comforting yet thrilling. My hair was styled carefully, makeup perfected, and I practiced one last time in the mirror, adjusting my posture, tilting my head just so, letting my reflection see the confidence I was trying to summon. I gripped my small handbag tightly, fingers curling around the strap, as if holding on to courage itself. Each step toward the elevator made my pulse quicken. The familiar hum of the building, the creak of the stairs, the faint chatter of neighbors suddenly felt like the prelude to a stage performance. Every eye that might glance my way seemed like a potential judge, a critic, someone who could see through the fragile armor I had spent hours crafting. The moment I stepped onto the street, I felt the soft sway of the skirt against my legs. The fabric seemed alive, echoing the rhythm of my heartbeat. I walked with deliberate care, practicing the gentle, confident steps I had rehearsed in front of mirrors 1,000 times. Each passerby was a test, a small challenge. Would anyone notice? Would anyone judge? And if they did, could I survive the glance, the whisper, the moment of exposure? At first, the city was intimidating. Heads turned occasionally, eyes lingering, some curious, some indifferent. But then it happened. A woman passing by smiled warmly and said casually, "Cute outfit." My chest swelled in a way I hadn't anticipated, and a shy smile escaped me. Just like that, a small acknowledgement, a fleeting moment, validated me. The fear that had been gnawing at the edges of my excitement dissolved slightly, replaced by a growing thrill. Cafes became my training ground. Ordering coffee, asking directions, small talk with shopkeepers. I approached each interaction cautiously at first, then with increasing confidence. My voice, once tentative and shaky, carried a soft, deliberate femininity that felt both natural and exhilarating. I noticed the tiny details, the way my hands rested on the counter, the gentle tilt of my head, the way my eyes met another's briefly without flinching. Every successful interaction was a victory, a secret affirmation that I could navigate this world as her. Markets, streets, bookstores, each outing was a new experiment. I learned to read reactions, smiles, glances, murmurs. Some people stared, some whispered, some ignored, and I learned to navigate all of it with a quiet poise. Each success bolstered my courage. Each stumble became a lesson. I practiced walking, laughing, gesturing, existing fully in my new self without apology. The thrill of being visible yet untouched, of existing boldly in a world that had always seemed neutral, was intoxicating. One evening, I attended a small social gathering, heart pounding, hands clasped nervously in front of me. At first, I lingered at the edge of the room, watching, analyzing, hesitant. But as the night unfolded, I discovered the magic of connection. People treated me as I wanted to be treated, not the cautious, hidden version of myself, but confident, alive, present. Conversations flowed naturally. Laughter came easily. Gestures felt instinctive. And for the first time, I felt that rare, shimmering sense of belonging, the exhilarating freedom of simply existing as who I truly was. By the end of the weekend, something inside me had shifted. The fear was still there, faint and manageable, but excitement, joy, and confidence had grown. I realized I was no longer just exploring in private. I was learning, practicing, and thriving in the world. Each step, each interaction, each small acknowledgement from strangers reinforced the truth I had been nurturing in mirrors. She wasn't just a reflection. She was real. She was me. And I was finally ready to live in that reality, one step, one gesture, one daring experiment at a time. It all came to a head on a Thursday afternoon. I had just returned from a coffee run, feeling light, alive, and quietly proud of myself for navigating the streets fully dressed without incident. But as I stepped into the office, the familiar hum of computers and chatter felt different. Charged. The atmosphere seemed to crackle with an unspoken tension. My manager, usually cordial but distant, called me into her office. Alone. My heart pounded violently as I walked the familiar path, each step echoing in the corridor. I gripped the strap of my bag tightly, my knuckles white. I could feel her eyes on me, and suddenly, every outfit, every gesture, every carefully rehearsed step felt exposed, fragile, as if it could crumble under scrutiny. "You've changed," she said carefully, her gaze steady, yet piercing. "Something's different about you." I swallowed, throat dry. This was it, the moment I had been dreading. The risk of being discovered, of being judged, of losing everything I had quietly cultivated. My mind raced. Should I retreat, pretend, deny everything? Or should I finally let the truth spill? I closed my eyes for a brief second, recalling the nights spent in front of mirrors, the silky fabrics brushing my skin, the thrilling sense of freedom, the small victories on the streets, the soft voice I had cultivated, the sway of my hips I had finally owned. This version of me, stood firmly beside me in my mind. She whispered, steady and confident, "You belong here. You are worthy. Don't hide anymore." I opened my eyes, exhaled shakily, and spoke the words I had feared for so long. I've been hiding. From myself. From everyone. The clothes, the way I move, the person I've discovered, it's all me. My confession spilled out, trembling, raw, unfiltered. The evenings alone with fabrics, the practice in front of mirrors, the small triumphs in public, they all came tumbling out. I braced for the recoil, the disapproval, the dismissal, the judgment I had imagined for months. Instead, she nodded, quietly, warmly. "Thank you for trusting me," she said. "You don't need to hide who you are to be valued here. Courage matters more than conformity. You've shown that." Relief washed over me in a dizzying wave. My chest loosened, my shoulders dropped, and tears threatened, not from shame, but release. The confrontation, I realized, wasn't about her judgment. It was about mine, about stepping into truth without apology. As I left her office, the corridors felt different. No longer threatening, no longer filled with imagined scrutiny. They were real, yes, but I felt anchored, empowered. I had faced the tension, risk, and fear, and I had survived, not just survived, but claimed space as the self I had long denied. After that meeting, everything shifted. Returning to my desk, I felt lighter, like a weight I hadn't fully realized I was carrying had been lifted. The office, the same fluorescent lights, the same chatter, the same hum of computers, suddenly felt more breathable, more spacious. I no longer had to shrink myself, no longer had to mask her rhythm, her tilt, the subtle confidence I had nurtured in secret. I could exist fully, unapologetically. That evening, I returned home and let the familiar fabric settle over me again. The silk blouse, soft against my skin, and the flowing skirt that swished with every step, they weren't just clothes anymore. They were symbols of courage, of self-recognition, of the freedom I had earned. I twirled slowly in front of the mirror, feeling the sway of my hips, the gentle drape of fabric, the reflection of someone who had once been hidden. "This is me," I whispered, voice soft but resolute. Over the following days, I began exploring new spaces with her. I visited bookstores, cafes, and small art galleries, allowing myself to move through the world fully as the person I had been afraid to claim. Each interaction was a tiny test, a delicate challenge to both my courage and my confidence. Ordering coffee, chatting with strangers, receiving a compliment, it all became affirmations, each one stitching a new layer into the fabric of my self-esteem. One weekend, I met friends I had known casually before. I was nervous at first, hands slightly trembling, voice careful yet melodic. But as the conversations unfolded, I saw understanding and warmth in their eyes. One friend leaned in, smiled softly, and said, "You look amazing. Honestly, I can't believe you kept this from us for so long." Relief and joy flooded me. Their acceptance didn't just validate me, it strengthened my belief that embracing myself was worth every risk. I noticed something profound with every glance in reflective surfaces, the shop windows, puddles, even my own apartment mirror. She, the confident, gentle, fully realized version of me, no longer startled me. I saw a harmony, a rhythm between who I had been and who I was becoming. Every tilt of the head, every soft gesture, Every confident step was no longer a performance, but a celebration of authenticity. By the end of the week, I felt a quiet pride in my posture, in my gaze, in my presence. I had navigated fear, judgment, and self-doubt, and emerged on the other side with a sense of empowerment that wasn't loud or flashy, but steady, enduring, and deeply fulfilling. I was reclaiming space I had never allowed myself before, proving with each small step that authenticity was not only possible, it was transformative. I sat by the window that night, city lights reflecting softly around me, and smiled. The journey hadn't ended, but I had crossed a threshold. She was no longer a secret, a fleeting shadow. I had given her life, and in return, she had given me freedom. Sitting by the window that night, watching the city lights shimmer and pulse, I realized something profound. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's stepping forward anyway. Authenticity isn't a one-time act, it's a daily choice, a quiet declaration that every part of you deserves to exist, be seen, and be celebrated. Looking at her reflection in the glass, I smiled softly. She, the woman I once glimpsed in stolen moments, the version of myself I had feared, hidden, and longed for, was no longer a secret. She was real. She was mine. And I was enough. To anyone watching the story, wondering if they can explore the parts of themselves they've kept hidden, I want to say this. Take the step, even if it trembles under your weight. Embrace your reflection, your rhythm, your truth. One choice, one moment, one daring act can change everything. Because living authentically isn't just brave, it's liberation. And it feels like coming home.